Oh, it seems a long time since I've been here, doesn't it? So, but hey-ho. Right, so welcome to the panel discussion on the customized approach. So as many of you will hopefully be aware, it's a new method for implementing and validating security controls. So just a brief background on myself. My name's John Bloomfield. I'm part of the DSS team. One thing, if you've looked at the agenda, that you might be aware of, I am not Lauren Holloway, and neither Matt Ball is not Brandy Cumberland. So hopefully now we've got that cleared up. Yes, to say Matt Ball, he's a member of the AQM team. So also we've got Marc Bayerkohler, he's one of the standards trainers, and we've got Tom White, who's the senior manager of content development. So they're here today to provide, some insights into that customized approach. So, and it's helping really assessors and organizations who will be using that to, to go through that process. So a little bit of a high overview there, but I just want to give some background into that customized approach. And I'm going to give I'm going to touch on this to start with, and it's really about how the customized approach fits into version 4. So for version 4, we've got two options for validating. And this is going to provide flexibility for organizations for how they're going to be implementing these security controls. We've got the defined approach. Now, this really is its traditional method for implementing and validating to PCI DSS. And in essence, this is, it's what everyone's been doing over the past couple of years. It's where an organization is implementing security controls to meet a requirement as stated, and it allows assessors to follow, those testing procedures to verify that a requirement is being met. So, organizations who already have controls in place, and are comfortable using that kind of defined approach, there is no need to change. The other thing about the defined approach is it's still really good for organizations who, need more guidance and direction. So it could be those who are maybe new to information security or potentially PCI DSS. So looking at the customized approach. And this is focused on PCI DSS requirements, and it's the customized approach objective. And this is where an organization is defining different controls to meet a stated objective that the assessor is, they'll go through and derive testing procedures and to verify that that control is working. Now, that customized approach is offering a lot more flexibility for new technologies that potentially might not fit in with that defined approach. So we do recognize that that customized approach is going to take potentially a little bit more effort than the defined approach. And it's going to be best suited for those kind of risk-mature organizations that already have robust, security procedures in place. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start today giving the panel some questions. So, Tom, first one I'm going to throw over to you. So, compensating controls, because, can we still use them in DSS version 4?
That sounds like a top 10 question to me. Yeah, so compensating controls are still part of version 4 assessments. They go along with the defined approach. So that defined approach is the normal, the traditional, what we've all done up until now. And compensating controls haven't really changed, so what you know about them already sticks. You need to have a technical or a business constraint that's documented. You need to build a control that mitigates whatever the risk is to the system that can't meet the requirements. And what else? We still have the compensating control worksheet that has to be completed for each compensating control. So yeah, no problem if you're using a defined approach to continue using compensating controls.
Okay, so I think that probably the big question here, and I've heard a couple of people saying this, what is that difference between the customized approach and a compensating control?
So with the customized approach, what we don't have is that business or technical constraint. So what entities will be doing with the customized approach is building secure, robust controls that meet the customized approach objective. And the customized approach objective, they're less prescriptive than the defined approach. Entities have got a choice about which approach they're going to use. So nobody is going to be forcing any entities into using the customized approach, and they can continue to use the defined approach as they have done before. The documentation in the customized approach is very different from the documentation for compensating controls. And what else was I thinking of? Because I've just said that compensating controls are OK to be used. But Matt, we were talking about a situation where you actually couldn't use a compensating control as in part of a version 4 assessment.
Yes, indeed we were, Tom. A compensating control cannot be used within a customized approach. The design of a customized approach should be built in such a way that there are no constraints that require the compensating control to meet them.
Yeah, so if you're using the customized approach, there's no compensating controls.
OK, so just so I'm clear and to give a bit of guidance for people, so who decides if an organization does that customized approach? I'll throw it over to you, Marc.
Yeah, well, I can think of at least 3 different entities that might be involved in a decision like that. And to begin with, there's the entity that's being assessed, right? Because they need to decide if the customized approach is appropriate for them, for their environment, if they're ready to do it. Because as Tom said, no one's going to force anyone to use the customized approach. Many organizations are just going to continue on with the defined approach. So they're a big part of that decision. Secondly, though, their assessor is going to be a part of that decision. Because remember, when we're using the customized approach, you will have to have an assessor involved in that. And your assessor has to agree that these customized controls are both effective and they meet the objective. So they have to, the assessor also has a say on whether the customized approach is going to be right here. But then finally, there's the entities, the report receiving entities. Because, of course, at the end of the day, any of these questions about compliance, it's the report receiving entities that have the final say in that sort of thing. So, for instance, for your merchants, that's probably going to be their acquirer. Now, some of these report receiving entities, they might care more than others. But we have to remember that this is new to them as well. So it's probably going to be a good idea, if you're going to use the customized approach, is at least run it by them just to see if they have any expectations or opinions about the reports that they're going to receive. OK, so I'll throw this back to you again, Marc. So what type of organizations do you think are going to be best suited to that customized approach? Best suited. When I think of an organization that's really well suited to the customized approach, I think of an organization that has a really mature risk management program. Like, these are organizations and people that are very comfortable with not only doing their own risk assessments, but also dealing with the results of those assessments. So there are those skills, but aside from those skills, I think about an entity that has really taken ownership of their own compliance, right? Because sometimes I've had some clients in the past, and it feels like they just wait around all year for an assessor to show up and do compliance to them. And that's not a great fit for the customized approach. A well-suited organization, they're going to be proactively doing this work, not waiting for it to happen to them. It's an organization that's really internalized and taken on the responsibility for their own compliance.
Yes, and building on what Marc has just said, as many of us are aware, PCI DSS is a 24/7, 365-day, 366 in a leap year activity. Supporting a customized approach will take that work to the next level. A risk-mature organization is best suited to the implementation of a customized approach because they will have the internal controls, policies, and procedures in place for handling it. But I'd also like to suggest that having an ISA on staff will help the organisation understand the requirements of a customised approach. An ISA, for those who aren't familiar with it, is the internal security assessor. And the internal security assessor will be able to help the organisation implement the customised approach and the other requirements from the PCI DSS standard.
Okay, so Marc, I'm not really picking on Marc, by the way, but so can you elaborate a bit on that entity's role in that customized approach? We've talked about the, a bit of it, but...
Right, what are they going to be doing? Because when an entity decides to take advantage of the customized approach and the flexibility that that gives them, they're also going to be taking on a lot of extra activities. And we have to keep in mind as well that the majority of all of these activities take place long before the assessment happens, before you're talking to an assessor. It's not in response to an assessment. And so, of course, what are some of the things they'll be doing? A lot of it is around the controls themselves. They're going to have to manage their controls, the entire life cycle of their controls, meaning that they're going to have to take on the design, the implementation, the evaluation, and the monitoring of their own controls. Of course, a big part of that is going to be documentation as well. We expect there's going to be a lot of policies and procedures that are describing all of how that is done, in addition to doing their maintaining evidence of everything that they've done. But as well as, beyond just policies and procedures, there's other types of documentation as well that are added on. There's some specific templates and forms that need to be filled out, and the PCI Council, we're providing templates for some of these. One of these is for the targeted risk analysis. That is a specific template that we have that fills out the information that will have to be filled out for each requirement where we're taking advantage of the customized approach. In addition to that, there's also the controls matrix. Now, this is another template that we have that goes into detail that's describing these controls. It's going to describe the customized control, how we know it's effective, how it's maintained, and perhaps especially how it's been tested by the entity itself. And that's before any testing that the assessor might do.
So, Tom, to flip this on the other side, so can you now describe the assessor's role in that customized approach?
All right, so firstly, the assessor has to work with the entity to really understand what they've built, what this customized control is. And like with everything new, it takes me a while to get my head around all of the words. So I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it out loud because it's useful for me, which is, if you're following the customized approach, you build a customized control that meets the customized approach objective. Okay, so if I say customized control, it's a thing that an entity has built that meets the customized approach objective. Okay, now I've got that. So what does it say down here? Yeah, so the assessor works with the entity, and they've got to understand everything about this customized control. And one of the things they'll be doing is they'll be reading all of the documentation. Marc mentioned the templates. Those are completed by the entity, and the assessor will read those to ensure that the templates that have been completed in a way that actually meets what PCI DSS is asking for. The assessor also has to derive their own testing procedures. So the defined approach, the old approach that is still current for PCI DSS, it's got prescriptive assessor testing procedures, but the customized approach doesn't have any of those, and it's up to the assessor to work out how they're going to be able to effectively test the customized control to ensure it meets the customized approach objective. So the assessor does all of that stuff, and then eventually they have to actually do the testing of the customized control.
Yes, and I'd like to emphasize that we're going to be looking at two types of testing. We're going to have the testing the organization has done as they've designed, built, implemented their customized approach or customized objective as part of a customized approach. And then there's going to be the testing the assessor is going to be developing based on the materials that the organization has provided to enable them to validate the implementation of that customized approach. Say, two forms of testing, totally separate, but both necessary.
Yeah, and so the assessor will review the entity's testing and the results that they've got as part of the assessment as well. If this is sounding quite complicated, the good news is that the stuff the entity has to do is all laid out in Appendix D and E of PCI DSS. So Appendix D talks about the customized approach, and Appendix E has got the templates in that Marc was talking about. And everything that the assessor has to do is laid out in another Appendix E, but of a different document. So Appendix E of the Reports on Compliance template contains the information for the assessor. So if you haven't looked at it already and you're thinking about using this approach, then definitely check out those two appendices. And the appendices are in the document just down at the bottom.
Okay. So, Matt, throw this over to you. So, now, is there an expectation then that the QSA can help design that customized approach?
Well, John, I'd like to start this response by talking a little bit about independence, because independence, I feel, is essential for supporting the customized approach. For many of us who are QSAs or been through the QSA process, they are aware, or should be aware, that they adhere to the PCI QSA qualification requirements and the Code of Organizational Responsibility, and that's at a company and an individual level. Now, stepping back from that, the QSA and the individuals in it are not in a position to actually, they should not be addressing their own work. When I say addressing their own work, assessing work that they've implemented. And that applies just the same to the implementation of a customized approach. So a QSA company can help design a customized approach for an organization. The individual QSA who designs the customized approach, bearing in mind independence, cannot be the same QSA who assesses the customized approach. So independence needs to be maintained all the time. Now, something I would like to sort of point out is the organization who's had this customized approach needs to be in a position to be able to maintain it, and that's important. An entity that is requiring a QSA to help design and maintain a customized approach may struggle to maintain the customized approach's effectiveness in the organization. So they might want to consider whether they actually need to use that approach or whether they'd be better off using the standard approach.
Okay, so hang on a second, because I'm just thinking about this now. So does this mean then, if you've got someone a QSA who's designed a customized approach, do you need to engage a different QSA company?
No, not necessarily. The QSA company should be able to demonstrate that it has a separation of duties within its organization, something which will clearly define the roles and responsibilities of individuals. So it maintains the independence of a customized approach design by the one set of QSAs or the individual who's doing it, and the individual who is who is assessing the validation of the customized approach. So the individual QSA who designs the CA, the customized approach, must not be the QSA who assesses the customized approach. So independence all the way through.
So I'm going back to the favorite person who I like to pick on here, Marc. So the customized approach. Now, is it a bit of a shortcut to PCI DSS compliance?
A shortcut? No.
Right.
No, I'm just going to say no. Far from it. Because by definition, when you're using the customized approach, it's going to take more time and resources. Which just makes sense, because with the defined approach, of course, you're able to use the canned requirements and controls and test procedures that are already in the standard. But when you're taking advantage of the customized approach, the entity has to develop all that on their own. So there's that to begin with. Another thing that's going to change is the fact that means the entity isn't going to be able to just passively respond to requests. Like they might be used to in the past an assessor coming and saying, here's the list of things that I need, and they just shovel them over. But with the customized approach, the entity is going to have to proactively identify and create and identify and maintain all this evidence that they're going to end up providing to the assessor. Then, of course, there's all those detailed forms that we mentioned earlier that must be filled out for the customized approach. So, which is to say, the customized approach might really give you a lot of flexibility to use some innovative controls and provide some great security, but I don't think it's going to necessarily be easier or less work than the defined approach.
Okay, so Matt, now I'm imagining, you've got an organization, they're halfway through an assessment, they're not meeting a PCI DSS requirement. Can they just flip over and use that customized approach?
No, absolutely not, and I apologise for being a little blunt there. The customised approach is not a way of avoiding PCI requirements or circumventing PCI requirements. The customised approach is not a fix for meeting a requirement which has been discovered as being non-compliant during an assessment. Now, if the organisation during an assessment process decides that they want to implement a customised approach and some customised objectives, that will delay, suspend the assessment. So remember, the organisation needs to design the customised approach. It needs to test it, implement it, document it. And that needs to be all done before the assessor can design their own testing to validate the implementation of the customised approach. So it will slow, maybe suspend the assessment. Now, the use of a customised approach will be something that the AQM team, the Assessor Quality Management team, will monitor as part of the annual QSA questionnaire going forward. Because we as a council want to understand how the customised approach is going to be used out in the field.
Okay, so getting a little bit short on time, so for each of the panelists, what I want to do here is just ask them for their one recommendation. So for organizations who are looking at the customized approach for the first time, so Tom, just 1 point, please, now. Don't go on some kind of long talk here. What's your 1 point you'd say?
I just wanted to sneak an extra little thing in, just because, again, like looking all at the details matter. And both Marc and I have talked a bit about the templates that need completing. And I just wanted to say that in those templates in PCI DSS, you don't have to follow those. You have to make sure that all the information is covered, but you don't actually have to use that. Anyway, that just caught in my brain as being a thing. I didn't want to say, it didn't want to make it sound like you had to always use those templates. Anyway. Oh, what was the question?
Right. I was after just one recommendation for an organization.
Can I just make another little point?
Wouldn't you say, it almost sounds, because I feel like when we're up here talking about this, that we're almost coming off a little negatively, like we're saying about, well, it can't be used for this and it can't be used for that. But honestly, the customized approach, there's a lot of positive things that this is going to bring to organizations, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely like the broadening of the sorts of security controls that can now be like completely PCI DSS compliant, which is cool. Anyway, but sorry, John, you had a question, but I will answer it. I would say this is really new. So we at the council are expecting a lot of feedback. We're ready for a lot of feedback. So if you're going down the path of designing customized controls to meet the customized approach, and there's things that you kind of want to ask us about, we're ready and willing to kind of have that conversation.
Okay, I'm just wondering how we can mute Tom's mic remotely, that's all. So, Matt, what's your point, you'd say?
Okay, from my perspective, I think it's essential that the organisation understands the roles and responsibilities in implementing and managing its customised approach versus the roles and responsibilities of the QSA, and ensure that it's got its plans in place accordingly.
Okay, finally, Marc.
I think my one main recommendation for organizations would be communication, especially communication with your assessor. You probably want to talk with them early and often as you're doing this, because as Tom said, this whole process is new for them as well, and it's probably going to take extra time for them, perhaps, to design and plan for their assessment, derive their testing procedures, and all of that. So make sure that you have a good open lines of communications with your assessors as you're going on this journey together.
Okay. So, well, thank you for listening to this panel today. And hopefully you've got a little bit of an idea here that it is a new topic, and it's a fairly complex one at that. So that customized approach might not be the right thing for every organization. But hopefully, we've given you enough of an insight and a little bit of a taster should an organization want to look at that customized approach a little more. And also, it might conversely, you've realized that actually your organization is good to stay with that defined approach. So if you've got any questions, we've got PCI staff around, so come and find us at the vendor showcase, or come to our offices and we'll have a chat there. So thank you very much indeed.